So I was thinking about a couple things, and someone asked me at the gym the other day, and I get asked this quite a bit, and I know it's a lot of people don't understand it, or it's just nothing's really proven, but how much protein intake you need to consume um, to best, either strength or hypertrophy. What's best? For me, I'm looking at just hypertrophy, which is basically building more muscle, or your muscle fibers get thicker, bigger. So that's what I'm concerned about. I care less about strength. I'm a bodybuilder. I don't care about strength, just size. But so I was thinking about this, and I remembered this just happened like a couple weeks ago. This came up in one of my kinesiology classes. It was nutrition and exercise. It's like a 600 level class, and we're covering protein intake, and it was something that got under my skin a little bit. So we're talking about protein use in the body as a substrate, or also oxidation of protein for energy, how it requires more ATP to break down, which can be good for trying to lose weight. If you get more of your calories from protein, you're going to actually burn more calories because it takes your body more ATP to break it down as an energy source. So that can be good. Not always the best, I guess. But that's one of the things about oxidation, but also as far as protein synthesis in the body, which is what I was, concerned about. So we were looking at, he was lecturing, and then he brought up a couple slides, or all the professors do slides now. It sucks. Slides blow, but whatever. So he's going through his notes, and he starts asking people like, okay, just take your weight and divide it by 2.2 for, so you can get your weight in kilograms. So everyone's, getting their weight in pounds on their calculator, divided by 2.2, whatever, and they get their weight in kilograms. So I'm like 210, equals about 94, 95, I think it's 95 point something, I could be wrong, something like that kilograms. So I did that. I already knew it because I already know where this was going. And so then he was like, some of the research shows that to increase protein synthesis, the best values of protein intake you should do a day is about 1.5 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So he just like picked a couple people out of the, in the classrooms, like 80, 90 people in there. And he was like, for you, he's like, what would that be? And it was like some, regular guy. And so he was just like, oh, it's like 140 or 50, I don't know what it was. And then, and so the professor's like, do you think that's something you could do on a daily basis? And the student was like, oh, no. He's like, that's a lot of protein, And so then he asked a girl, and hers was like around 80 or 90, and then she just like shook her head. And then, so he's like, if you're in the gym a lot and you want to help with protein synthesis and hypertrophy and strength gains, you need to up your protein a little bit. So your body has amino acids to repair your muscles, so they can grow bigger, and also just, everything like that. And then he did have a point on his slide that said, most bodybuilders consume large amounts of protein, 2.5 to 3 grams kilogram per day. And then he was like, but he's like, studies show or don't support this at all. And then he was just like, these studies show that this increase in protein is useless, basically. You're just wasting your money. Your body oxidizes it, uses it for energy, not for protein synthesis, therefore not going to increase muscle hypertrophy, which is what a bodybuilder wants. And so I was just like, yeah, I don't really agree with that. But I did have a chance to kind of rebuttal a tiny bit. He just asked the class, he's like, everybody take your weight in kilograms times it, multiplied by 3. And so everyone just does it. And he's like, is there anybody who eats that amount of protein a day? So it's class 80 and 90 people. Bodybuilders aren't that common. And sure enough, I was the only one to raise my hand. I'm fine with that, whatever. And so he was surprised. He was caught off guard. He's like, how much protein do you eat a day? So I was like, well, I eat about 300 to 315 in food a day. I was like, yeah, I do take protein shakes as well. So it's like I'm eating about 400, a little over 400 with food and protein shakes a day. And the whole class just, oh my God, that's insane, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of chuckled too, And he was just like, what's your grocery bill every month? And I was like, oh, it's about 400. And everyone just, oh my God, in awe. And then he was like, I'm not going to tell you straight to your face that you're wrong, but he's like, science doesn't support what you're doing as far as increasing for hypertrophy. Your body's just going to use that extra protein for energy and whatnot. And so I did, comment back. I was just like, well, it's like I understand that research might not support that, but I was like, if you look at any bodybuilder out there, natural or unnatural, you're not going to find any of them that eat less than 2.5 or 3 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And like for me, that's like I'm eating like 3 to 4, which is way more. And then he was like, well, he's like I have to agree with you, but he's like science doesn't show that it's true or that it works. So I didn't say anything, so I was just like whatever. I'm just gonna let the lecture go. That's fine. Continue whatever. And so he brings up these studies that elicit his point of what he said, like 1.5, 1.8 is essential for hypertrophy and strength gains, and that anything above that is pretty much useless. And there are studies that showed that had like a control group that like they eat whatever they want, and then like a 1.8 grams per kilogram group, and like a 3 grams per kilogram group. And so in like 3 or 4 different studies, the highest 2.5 or 3 gram, whatever the study had per kilogram body weight, it showed no change versus the 1.5 or 1.8 gram per kilogram group. So I was kind of surprised. So I went home and looked at these studies more. So I'm a good student. I like to look at things more and whatnot. And these studies they're not good in my opinion. And here's the reason why. So I looked them up, and these studies take place. Most of them are 1 to 2 months. So that alone should raise up a bunch of red flags. Any bodybuilder, or most people know, to gain muscle mass takes a long time. A natural bodybuilder can put on 10 pounds of muscle in a year, and that's considered a great year. Some people are freaks, or if they're just starting out, they can put 15 pounds maybe of lean muscle mass, just muscle mass in a year. But 10 is relatively good. Like for me, my first show, I was looking like 165. My next show, I was like 177. So I gained about 12 pounds of muscle. Hypertrophy takes a long time. You're not going to see a difference between those two groups, the 1.8 and 3.0 groups, in a month or two. That's unreal. In science, there might be a little change, but it has to be a significant change. So in all scientific studies, there has to be significant change for it to count, I guess you could say. So there's no significant change, which I totally agree with. You're not going to see change in muscle size or strength, from a different change in diet and increased protein intake in just a couple months. That's outrageous. It's going to take 6-12 months. I mean, you show me a study that has these same ratios of protein intake a day and that are spread out for a year or two. And they're working out not just one time a week, which one of the studies did, which blew my mind. They're working out 6 days a week, really intense exercise, and something that's just going to break down their bodies a lot, like what a bodybuilder would do. And do it for about a year. I guarantee you the 3.0 group is going to show huge hypertrophy gains and probably strength gains too. So that's my rant on it. That's pretty much my stand on it. So there's a lot of people I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right. There's no studies that show this, because I looked and he looked. That's why when he was talking to me in class or in front of the class, he's like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but he's like, you're not going to find any studies that support what you're doing. And so sure enough, there's not. Getting a participant in a study to participate for over around a year, which I think would be best, eating that much protein per day, you're not going to find many people that are going to volunteer to do that. So I can see why it hasn't been shown to be effective yet. There's no studies that have looked at it this way. But I think it is essential to eat a lot of protein. I would recommend, if I did have a client that was a bodybuilder, to at least 3 grams per kilogram of body weight. And then if he wants to go above and beyond, he can do 3.5 or 4.